Welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show, where you'll learn how to grow your team today. Join Ken Trupke and his guests as they discuss what works and doesn't work to grow your team in today's world. And now, your host, Ken Trupke.
Hello, and welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show. On today's Ask Me Anything episode, I'm going to address a listener question. If you have a question, please email it to ken@clarityadvisors.io, and we'll try to get to it in a future episode. Okay, on to today's question. On the disc chart, I'm an S, and my boss is a D. I feel like she doesn't care about me, and no matter how much I accomplish, it's not enough. How can I work with her better? Yes, excellent question. The challenges of working with people with different behavior styles. So the DISC, if you're not familiar with it, the DISC chart or the DISC assessment is a way of understanding behavior so that we can adapt and work more effectively and communicate more effectively with others. And the DISC process categorizes people into a D, I, S, or C as their primary behavior style. So just right there, you can tell if there are 4 different behavior styles and you have a primary one, that 3/4 of the time you're talking and working with someone who has a different style than you. And that's where the challenge comes in. How can we adapt to be more effective with people who aren't like us? And sometimes it's even challenging to work with people who are like us, because even when they are like us in this simplified put people into 4 different spots kind of assessment tool, there's still a lot of nuance in each of those types. And everybody's a blend of the D, I, S, and C. Everybody has some of each of those in their behavior style. And we can change depending on the situation. We might be more D or more S depending on what's happening. And so the idea is to be familiar with this enough to understand it and then harness it to be more effective in our communications and in our relationships. So before we dig into this situation specifically, let's step back and review the DISC assessment generally. So picture a circle. Now draw a line horizontally through the center of the circle. So you divide it into a top half and a bottom half. This is pace. The top half, faster pace. People that talk fast, walk fast, decide fast. And on the bottom half is the more deliberative pace. People that talk a little bit more slowly, maybe even talk a little bit more softly, move a little bit more slowly, and probably make decisions more slowly. They need more time to process, and they're more deliberative. Now, none of this in DISC is good or bad or better or worse. We're understanding so that we can be more effective, not so we can judge, because there is no right or wrong. So just take decision making. Making a fast decision in some situations might be great, but in other situations it might be terrible. Maybe we should be waiting to get more information because we don't need to make a decision right now. So let's not until we get more information to make a better decision. So it's not about good or bad. Okay, so dividing through the middle horizontally divides the top half from the bottom half, fast pace, deliberative pace. Now draw another line through the center of the circle, but this time vertically, so that we've got a left side and a right side. This is dividing the circle by priority. On the left side is task, and on the right side is people. So task-oriented people tend to be asking, what are we working on, and when will it be finished? Whereas people-oriented people on the right side are asking, who is working on this and how are they feeling? So a question, one way to tell the difference here is that if somebody says, what are you working on and what are you doing? Well, that's a task-oriented type person. What are you doing versus the people-oriented person who's going to say, how are you doing? So it's not that task-oriented people don't care about people. They do. They just tend to put the task first. It's their priority. And the same way with people, priority people, it's not that they don't care about getting things done. They do. They just tend to put the people first. So you can see where this is going to create some conflict. And in the workplace, it tends to be priority much more than pace that generates conflict. People that are faster paced or slower paced, but if they're both people-oriented people, they can figure that out. Or if they're both task-oriented people, they can figure that out. But when somebody is people-oriented versus task-oriented, those are very different. And that's where conflict comes into the situation. So now we've divided the circle into 4 quadrants. By drawing a line horizontally and a line vertically, we've got 4 different quadrants. So let's put the letters of DISC into those 4 quadrants. So starting in the top left, we're going to put the D. So that's the faster pace, task-oriented. Now moving clockwise over, still faster paced, but now people-oriented is going to be the I. Coming down, still people-oriented, but now slower, more deliberative pace is going to be the S, and then still more deliberative pace, but over to the left side, you've got the C, which is going to be slower, deliberative pacing, but now task-oriented again. So D's and C's, task-oriented, I's and S's, people-oriented. D and I fast, S and C, more deliberative. So now that we've got the 4 things, we can start to understand how are people going to behave differently. And as I said, the conflict comes in when you've got left side versus right side. And there is still some conflict with fast and slow, but much less so. But now, interestingly, in our question, the questioner was an S and the boss is a D. And so we have both things going on here. We not only have a difference in priority, but we also have a difference in pace because they're diagonal to each other. The D and the S are diagonally opposed, the same as the I and the C. And that tends to be where there's maximum conflict because you're both different in your pacing and you're different in your priorities. So about 10% of the population is a D, and the D is going to be direct. That's where they get the letter. There's a couple different words you can use for direct, or for the D, but we'll use direct. They value performance. They value winning. They're fast-paced, task-oriented. Now, the S is about 35% of the population, and we'll use the word steady with the S. So they value appreciation and peace and patience, and they hate conflict and they hate surprises. They're more people-oriented, people first, and they're more deliberative in their pacing. So you can see a lot of conflict here. We've got fast versus slow, and we've got task versus people. So what are we going to do here? How can we help our S work with the D boss? So first thing is you only control you. And so the advice I'm going to give here is for the S to adapt to the D. Now, if I was talking with the boss, I would say, hey, as the D leader, let's adapt to our S teammate because you only control you. And while it would be great for the S to adapt to you, we don't control that. We only control us. So let's work on what we can do. So, and let's also give the leader the benefit of the doubt and assume that she does care about you. And it's just that she has tasks as a priority over people. So it's not that she doesn't care about people. She just tends to put the task first. And so that doesn't mean she doesn't care about you, but it certainly can feel that way. And because she's so task oriented and accomplishment driven, that, yeah, sometimes it might feel like no matter how much we do, it's not enough. Well, yeah, because for the D, there's always more. It's all about the to-do list. It's all about moving quickly and knocking things out. It's not necessarily about the people doing that work. And that's where the conflict comes in. And now before I get into 4 very specific things that an S can do to work more effectively with a D, I want to suggest a more overarching idea. And it's something that I suggest to anyone who's having conflict in the workplace with another person. And that is get it on the table. Have a meeting, ideally face-to-face, with that person and just share how you're feeling. In this case, the boss might not know when this letter writer approaches her and says, hey, I feel like you don't even care about me. And no matter how much I accomplish, it's not enough. The boss might say, I had no idea you were feeling that way. I do care about you. I know I don't often talk about personal stuff or ask you how your weekend was because at work, I'm just so focused on getting things done. She's a D. And yeah, there's always more to do. And I feel like once we get what we've got on our plate accomplished, we just move on to the next thing. And that's just how I'm wired and how I've always worked. And I just assumed you were good with that. I had no idea. Like, that's probably what's going to come out of that conversation. And it at least gives her the benefit of the doubt, and it gives her the chance to address it. Now she knows. And you just put it out there in a way that's non-threatening. Say, listen, this is how it makes me feel. You probably didn't intend for it to happen, but this is what's happening. And I'm demoralized and I'm demotivated and I want it to be better. And I wanted you to be aware of how I'm feeling so that we could work it out differently. Now, that would be great if that all happened. Now, what might happen though, and be ready for this, is the boss might say, yeah, well, too bad. I don't really care about caring about you. And it doesn't really matter to me one way or the other. And I'm sorry you feel like you're not getting enough done, but there's always more to do. And yeah, we are kind of behind and we do have a ton to get done. Now, that's not an ideal outcome for that conversation, but at least you've taken the high road and put it out there and made it clear how you're feeling and given her a chance to address it and change. And hopefully she does. And if she doesn't, well, now you know that. And now you know it's never going to be different, that there's really nothing you can do to fundamentally change her caring about you or her working with you and making you feel like you're accomplishing things, because that's just not how she's going to operate. So whether that's good or bad, now at least you know. But anytime there's conflict in the workplace, I think you've got to address it head on. So with that, now let's get into 4 very tactical things that you can do as an S to just improve your relationship and your working relationship and your communication with your D boss. Number 1, pick up your pace. Just frankly, talk a little faster if you can. The D wants to move quickly and responds to things going fast. And so if you can talk a little faster, that will help. Now, that can be really hard to do because it's kind of just who we are. And so if you can't talk a little faster, that's okay. But maybe you can drop some of the words that you're using currently. Like, we don't necessarily need to say, hope your day's going well, or hey, how are you? Or I just want to talk about you. Let's just get to it. Just start saying, I've got 3 things for you. Here we go. And you don't need to have that kind of preamble, because the D isn't going to miss it. They're going to be like, wow, that was so weird. They didn't even ask me how I was doing today. They didn't ask me anything about my weekend. The D not going to ask you that. As a D, I can tell you that does not register. It does register if you bring it up and I'm in a hurry and you say, hey, so how was your weekend? Let me tell you about mine. Like, okay, are we supposed to be accomplishing something here or what? So as the S, just move a little more quickly. Okay, that was number 1. Number 2, set time limit expectations. The D is always on the clock. The D is looking to get things checked off the list and they want to move fast. So if you hit them with a, hey, this will only take 6 minutes, or I'm going to need 11 minutes to get some clarity on this issue, it signals that you're prepared. By giving that very specific time, it signals that you've thought about this and you're prepared to discuss it in a very concise way. It's not going to ramble on and we don't know where it's going to end, and it's not going to have a lot of side tracks and rabbit trails. We're going to really cut to it and get things accomplished. Ds love that. And when you're specific with your time, like 6 minutes or 11 minutes, that signals that you've really thought about it. If you just say, hey, do you have 15 minutes or 5 minutes or any kind of, frankly, any multiple of 5, it feels like you're just guessing. Like, hey, do you have 15 minutes? Well, geez, I'm thinking that's probably going to be half an hour to an hour. But if you say 6 minutes, now I'm thinking might take only 6 minutes. That'd be fantastic. I definitely can carve out 6 minutes. I just can't carve out an unlimited amount of time because you're not prepared. So listen, say 6 minutes. And if it drifts into 7, 8, 9 minutes, as long as we're focused and moving, the D is going to be good with that. But it's just when you say, hey, do you have a couple minutes or a few minutes? And I grab some time with you, that feels so open-ended that the D is going to be very resistant to that. So setting time limit expectations is a helpful thing you can do as an S working with your D. Okay, number 3, have an agenda. Ds love it when you come to them with the number of things you want to talk about. Hey, I got 4 things for you. Number 1, like literally, you can just start the conversation that way. You don't need to say, hey, how are you doing? How's it going? You just like, hey, you got 4 things for you. Number 1, and then go into it and call out the number, because as you get into number 1, It might have 2, 3, 4 aspects to it as you go. And for the D, they're trying to track this. They're trying to get a framework around this, and they're thinking in bullet points. And so if we start talking about this and then a little bit of that and a little bit of this, they might think like, okay, that was 2 and 3. We're almost done. So you need to reset expectations. Like, okay, that was all number 1. Number 2. It just keeps them on track. And I'll roll with you if you keep me on track. If I say, wow, that felt like a lot for just number 1, but okay, they're prepared, they're organized. Now we're on to number 2, 3, 4. And also along with this agenda is have a call to action for each thing. What is it that you need from somebody? Do you need a decision? Are you just giving them an FYI? Hey, for your information, you should know blah, blah, blah. Now, frankly, if it's just a for your information, maybe that's an email. Can you accomplish that with an email? D's love to read an email that I can read anytime that's just something that doesn't need a response. But if you need to really talk about it or get a decision, well then, yeah, that's a great thing to have a conversation about. But let me know I need help deciding about this, or I need you to decide this. Tell me what you're looking for from me. Don't just start talking and expect me to ride along and not know where this is going. So have an agenda. Okay, and number 4, give her choices. If you could do X or Y, then say, okay, I need you to make a decision. We need to decide whether we're going to do X or Y. And here's some quick pros and cons. If we do X, boom, boom, boom. If we do Y, boom, boom, boom. There's a great concept from a book by David Marquet. His book is called Turn the Ship Around, where he talks about he was a submarine captain in the Navy, and he taught his team to say, I intend, to bring the decision to him and just say, Captain, I intend to boom, boom, boom. And then all he had to do was say, make it so. Sounds good. Go ahead. I agree. Or he could say, well, hold on. Have you thought about this and this and this? But if everything was all set, all he had to do was sign off and here we go. So now if you do need to actually have the other person, have your leader make a choice, then tell them, listen, I need 6 minutes to decide about this issue. Here's the situation. We need to decide, are we going to do X or we're going to do Y? Here's some quick pros and cons. What do you want to do? D's love choices. And so, but you got to frame it up. You got to keep it tight. It can't just be a rambling, here's a bunch of different things and I've thought about this and that. And here's another thing. I was like, just what are the pros and cons? What are the choices? Keep it concise. Let me make a decision and go. So summarizing, as an S, to work more effectively with your D boss, pick up your pace. Cut out things that don't need to happen in that conversation. Now, that's not to say that you can't meet in the kitchen or at the drinking fountain or outside of work or in a parking lot on the way to the car or whatever, or getting caught, any of those kind of casual situations. And you can't say, hey, how's your weekend? Like, again, the D does care about you and cares about people and wants to have a relationship. But in the course of work, when we're trying to get things accomplished, that's not the time to bring them your weekend story. Over coffee in the break room is a time to bring up your weekend story. So it's not that D's aren't interested in you. They're just not putting that first during the work time. So you got to pick up your pace a little bit. Number 2, set time expectations. When you can create and signal that you're prepared and that this is going to take a short time and it's going to be very focused, D's love that. Number 3, have an agenda. Got 4 things. Number 1, boom, get through it. Number 2, and have that call to action. If you need a decision, let them know. And if it's an FYI, if it's just a for your information, I want you to know these things, maybe that's an email. And then number 4, give her choices. You need to decide between X and Y, what direction do you want to do? Or if you have a recommendation or you actually know the answer you want to do, go ahead and do a I intend statement. We need to decide about this. I intend to do boom, boom, boom. And just have them go, sounds good. Here we go. So there you go. Listen, working with other people is always challenging. It's always easy until people get involved. And when people have different priorities, extra challenging. And when you have different priorities and different paces, very, very challenging. Those opposites in the DISC profile, the D's and the S's and the I's versus C's, very challenging. So don't give up, and please give the benefit of the doubt to the other person. This is not to judge. It's not better or worse. The D isn't better than the S, and the S isn't better than the D. Fast isn't better than slow, and task isn't better than people. They're just different. So let's celebrate those differences and honor those differences, but let's try to adapt to those differences so that we can be more effective. Okay, again, if you've got a question you'd like me to address, please send that to ken@clarityadvisors.io, and we'll see you next time on the Clarity Advisors Show. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Clarity Advisors Show. Clarity Advisors is a speaking, training, and consulting firm specializing in helping you simplify your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Connect with Clarity Advisors today to learn more about how they can help you improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success.